Hi, everybody. We thought it would be a good idea to record a video or two to help people with their checkpoint 5. So this video in particular is going to focus on this part 3, where we're asking you to create Lewis dot structures for an entire reaction. And one thing to keep in mind is that this is a little bit different than what we asked for in checkpoint 4. In checkpoint 4, we asked you to show the process of putting the atoms together to form a molecule. But now what we're doing is we're asking you to show how the atoms in the molecules rearrange during the course of a reaction to make a new product. So I'm not going to demonstrate with the reaction that you'll actually be doing, which is the one that's on slide 5. But I thought a reasonable reaction to look at would be the one that everybody did with their group work today and yesterday. And this is the reaction that everybody had to balance the equation, and everybody did really well at this. And so it's this one right here, where we have one molecule of H2 reacting with one molecule of F2 to produce two molecules of HF. So in order to show this, there's a few approaches we can do. What I do recommend is honestly that you sketch some of this out just with a pencil and paper, and you can actually just take a picture of that and upload it onto this slide. But I'm going to assume that maybe you did that, take you through the process, and then just draw it out using these tools that we have over here on the left. But either of those is fine. A combination of the two is fine. But a pencil and paper might certainly help you. So what I'm going to do is start just by making some of the elements that we'll be using. So in this case, we're only using 2 elements, actually. As you see, there's only hydrogen and fluorine that appears in here. So I'm going to make this one hydrogen, and I'm going to make this one fluorine. Now, the next step is to make Lewis models of these atoms. And if you've done checkpoints 3 and 4, you've already done this to a point where hopefully you're starting to get comfortable with it. But if you remember our Lewis model, it shows the number of valence electrons that we have. And just as a way of reminder, remember that hydrogen here, it only has 1 valence electron. I'm just going to abbreviate that VE. And fluorine over here has 7 valence electrons, which is a lot, but that's okay. I think we can manage it. So hydrogen, 1 valence electron. That's it. That's our hydrogen atom. Now fluorine, 7 valence electrons. So I'm going to start on the left here this time. So we have 1, 2, and remember when we put the electrons in, always put 1 electron in each of these 4 positions before we start making electron pairs. Okay, and then we can start pairing them up. And just for convenience, I'm going to make the pairs this way. Okay, and I might move. So now, I'm just going to do something really quickly here, just to hopefully make my life easier, which is I just kind of wanted to move these 2 electrons up as they were crowding the other electrons. Anyway, okay, so now what we have to do is put these atoms together to make 1 H2 molecule, 1 F2 molecule, and 2 HF molecules. So first of all, one thing you might notice is we don't have enough atoms. So we're going to have to make some more. So now one thing is you can actually kind of click and drag on slides in order to select more than one thing. So I just selected both this little electron and the H. And you can copy and paste it to get another H, because we're going to need at least 2 H's in order to make H2, at least on this side of the equation. Same here. Oops, don't want that. We're going to need 2 of these fluorine atoms in order to make F2. But then to keep things balanced, we're actually going to need the same atoms on the left as on the right. So you know what? I'm just going to copy all of these, and I'm going to deselect that part. You're not going to have that part in your slides, hopefully. But we're going to need all of these atoms on the right here too. So I'm just going to start off by doing this. All right. So now if you remember what we did in checkpoint 4, is the next thing we did is to make the molecules, we use these like red lines here to show how the electrons get shared. So for example, to make a molecule of H2, these electrons would pair up. Likewise, to make a molecule of F2, if you notice with fluorine, just like hydrogen, it actually also has only this one unpaired electron. All of the other electrons are paired, and when the electrons are already paired, like these here and these here and these here, then they don't participate in bonding. And that's why we sometimes refer to them as non-bonding electrons, because they don't participate in the bonding. So we can see that this is how the molecules are going to be formed. So hydrogen, to make H2, we're going to pair up these two electrons, and to make F2, we're going to pair up these two electrons. So there's many ways that you can do this to make these molecules. What I'm going to do in this case is just actually, again, I'm going to use a little trick here. If you send these to the back, then it'll allow me to select the electrons. So what I'm going to do is actually delete those. And in this case, I'm just going to use a line to make the bond. And notice in these, down here in this bond bank, I put horizontal lines and vertical lines. And they don't have to be horizontal or vertical. They can also be diagonal. But I'm just going to put a line there to show the bond between these two hydrogen atoms. For the fluorine here, it's a little bit tricky because of these non-bonding electrons. So I'm going to do something that that you may or may not be. I'm comfortable with it just because I've been doing this for a long time, but hopefully it does not cause too much confusion. So I'm going to delete that. And what I'm going to do is just, instead of having this non-bonding electron, or this single electron be here, I'm just going to kind of move this over here, pair the electrons there, pair the electrons right there, so I can make a bond between these two F atoms, between these two single electrons. So let's get rid of those, and let's take a line here, show the bond, and we'll put a bond between these two fluorine atoms. And really, that's all there is to it for the left side of the equation here. We'll kind of try to neaten that up a little bit. So on the left side of this reaction, I think we have everything that we need. Now let's kind of move it over, get it out of the left side there, clean it up. And now on the right, we have all the atoms we need for our two molecules of HF. And you can see that, similar to what we did with the hydrogen and the fluorine, because each of them have these single electrons that want to make a bond, we can just, we'll essentially be drawing a line between those two electrons and these two electrons. And whoops, and this is how these atoms are going to come together to make bonds. And just like we did over here, we can replace these with the actual single line to represent a bond. So let's try this. Let's try to delete all this stuff. And again, I'm going to use the trick of sending this to the back, because that way it's not in the way anymore. I can teach you how to do that if you want. I'm just going to move this down to get it out of the way a little bit. Same here. And kind of move this down to get it out of the way a little bit. Things are getting crowded. But now we can just take a bond here. put it between the hydrogen and the fluorine. Yeah, maybe I'll get things a little bit closer together just to, you know, make it look like they're bonded, make it look like they're connected and happy. And then just do the same thing here. Now, let's do it the quick way there by moving it over. And again, this is just the same thing here. Let's do that. Put hydrogen there. We put this bond in between them. And that is all there is to it. You know, if you want, you can double check everything by counting the atoms and counting the electrons, make sure we didn't lose anything in this process. And we have 2 hydrogen atoms here, 2 hydrogen atoms here, 2 fluorine atoms here, 2 fluorine atoms here on the right. Then also we've got, you know, 2 electrons here, 2 electrons here, that's 4 electrons. 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 total electrons. And here we have 2, 4, 6, 8. Remember these lines represent 2 electrons. So we have 8 electrons here, 8 electrons here to make 16 electrons. And you'll also notice that all of the valence shells are filled. Because we have these covalent bonds, the electrons are being shared. So each of these hydrogen atoms has 2 electrons because these 2 electrons get shared. Each of these fluorine atoms actually has 8 electrons. So remember, hydrogen can only have 2 electrons in its valence shell, so that's happy. Fluorine can have 8 electrons in its valence shell, so that's happy. And over here on the right with HF, that's the same thing. Hydrogen gets 2 electrons from this bond, so it's happy, it has a full valence shell. And fluorine gets this 2, 4, 6, 8 electrons. So that's it. Hopefully that was helpful for you, and we look forward to seeing some completed checkpoint 5s.